Welcome and thank you, Rob, for joining us today. I'm sure everyone is super excited for this session.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. I'm here today to talk to you about product strategy and product road mapping. Great. So, Kush and I created a little title for our presentation here called The Art of Strategic Product Roadmap. Really, the thing that I want to focus on today is product strategy. And your roadmap is kind of the output of a good product strategy. And I want to give you some tools that I've spoken to product managers about before and have worked really well for them in order to sort of navigate this space. A little bit about me. My name is Rob. I've been doing product management for over 12 years. Some companies that I've worked for that you may recognize: NetSuite, acquired by Oracle in 2017. I joined there to work on their HR module called Suite People. I joined there 2.5 years before that module was launched, with the mandate to, as part of a larger team, build it and launch it. We did that, and it's been really successful in market so far, and I'm really proud of the team, continue to be proud of the team that built that. Second, RoadMonk. If you are in product management, you might have heard of RoadMonk. It's software for product managers to build, socialize, and maintain their product roadmaps on an ongoing basis. I was director of product there for almost 2 years. I ran product management and the design group for RoadMonk over that time. So I've got some varied product management background. And I'm happy to share what I've learned with the group. And I hope that at least some of it is applicable to you in your world and in the job that you're doing. I'm going to start with a few things product managers say. In my time at RoadMonk, certainly I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of product managers in a lot of different disciplines around the world. As I'm also doing a ton of mentoring here in the local Kitchener-Waterloo region here up in Canada. And things that I hear a lot from product managers: I have no time. I spend all my time managing development. I have no time to focus on strategy. I have no time to spend with my customers. Decisions get pushed down to me. I have no input on the priorities. I don't have this mandate to focus on strategy. Someone else is doing that and telling me what the features are that we need to build. How do I push up into that space and become more strategic? And what's the best way to present my product roadmap? I feel like I'm just presenting a list of features with delivery timelines. I feel like I'm babysitting the development team. These are things that I hear a lot from product managers, and PMs, rightfully so, know that this is not a good situation to be in, that being a backlog babysitter is ultimately not why they got into the career of product management. But they're not quite sure exactly how to push up into the strategic elements. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. So, fundamental question: what's your job as a product manager? A lot of folks that I ask this question to, I ask them what they do on a day-to-day basis, what occupies their time. Ultimately, you are the sum of your habits. And so what you spend most of your time on is your job. And unfortunately, the answer that comes back a lot of the time from folks is: I spend a lot of time with development. I spend a lot of time grooming the backlog. I spend a lot of time on how the user experience should work. I spend a lot of time updating project plans and communicating dates to people. I spend a lot of time project managing and doing release management. Okay, well, because you do that, that becomes your job. And so what are you neglecting, right? Let's say leadership says, we need to double revenue this year, and your execution team that you're working with is attempting to build a feature Z. What's missing in between? It's the product strategy. So I want you to take us a few minutes and just think about, or a few seconds here to think about who covers product strategy in your organization. Does leadership try and push down into product strategy? Does your team try to push up to product strategy? Are you relying on your head of product or whoever your product management boss is to define the strategy? I would argue that it's your job as a product manager to define the strategy for your product or your area of the product. And what the simplest way to think about your product strategy is, what problem are we solving and for who, and why is that the right problem to solve for and why are those the people to solve it for right now, right? So if I want to double revenue this year, that means that I should probably be trying to solve a problem that's worth some amount of additional dollars coming from a certain group of people. It's the simplest way to think about it, and ultimately here, what we're looking for is, I'm going to try to rephrase this. People don't spend money to buy your feature. They ultimately spend money to solve their problem. And so what feature are you, what's problem is your feature solving is ultimately what we want to pull it back to. And there's where you can connect the dots on your product strategy. There's many different features you could possibly build to solve problem X in a lot of cases. And so whenever you're asked to build a feature, the next question needs to be why, for who, is there another way to do this? Symptoms of a weak strategy. So you have a gap there when you're experiencing symptoms like lack of resources. Everything's important. We're spread way too thin. We're trying to do so many different things. I can't get the things that really matter resourced. Often that's because there's a lack of focus, that we haven't made some hard trade-offs and hard choices and focused our efforts on the few things that are truly important. Two, symptom being planning by committee. So there's a big difference between prioritization and focus, which I'll talk about in a few slides. But if you're doing a sort of a voting or a buy a feature style prioritization internally at the product line level, there might be a disconnect to strategy. If you have a solid strategy and say we want to take our product in this direction next, at a get done become very quickly, and folks argue very little about specifically what to build. You can empower the team a lot more to make those decisions and push the decision making on what to build down. Three, incomplete features. If you see a lot of half-baked features in your product and you tend to ship a version 1 or a MVP, and then move on next thing because the organization is overcommitted to the next thing on the roadmap, this can also be a symptom of a weak strategy. We're not saying no to things. We're overcommitting early. All of these things can be mitigated with a strong product strategy. Prioritization versus focus. The main difference here is with prioritization, we've ranked everything in order of importance. Great, this initiative or this goal is more important than that one, and we've distributed all of our resources accordingly. Well, now we have the spread too thin problem again. Versus focus, we've decided what not to work on at all. It's gone, it's out of our minds, it's not hanging over our heads. That's the litmus test for focus. So if you can say that feature request or that thing that we had on our roadmap before is gone. We are not talking about it right now. We are not focused there. It should not even be on the roadmap. It is gone. That's a level of really strong focus versus that thing that we were talking about before. It's on the roadmap. It's just not a high priority right now. So we pushed it out 2 years down the road. Right? That's a refusal to establish a focus. In my mind, that's just pushing something way down the list, saying we'll get to it eventually, and then people having false expectations in their head that we'll ever actually get to that thing. So prioritization versus focus is a really important distinction that I want to make sure everyone takes away from this. Here's the trouble and why a lot of organizations don't achieve focus. It's hard. It's very hard. And because of these few reasons. One, everyone must make hard choices. So everyone, meaning all the way up the chain into the leadership organization, C-level all the way through, as well as cross-department. So, all VPs, all directors, all C-level must make hard choices. They must be okay with being a bit disappointed because they're not going to get the special thing that they need or they think they need or they want. And as much as I want to give you a playbook for this, I can't. There is no playbook. Looks like something's coming in here. There's a chat. Oh, okay. Not relevant for me. Okay. There is no playbook, but I can give you a few tools. Before I get into tools, I want to remind you, this is one of my favorite things that Marty Kagan's ever produced, the inconvenient truths about product. One, at least half of our ideas aren't going to work. So this is something important to keep in mind. When we stack feature on feature on feature in the roadmap, what we're saying is if we build this, it's going to have market value and we're going to drive directly linearly to the end state. We're going to spec it out, then we're going to build it, then we're going to ship it, and it's going to be awesome. These inconvenient truths here are absolutely true. And that's where you end up with some of those sort of symptoms of weak strategy that I pointed out before, around incomplete or half-baked features in the market. It takes several iterations to actually deliver on the expected business outcome. That is unfortunately true. And so we need to bake in time and space for those things. Okay, so I've scared you enough with all the problems and how hard this is going to be. I want to give you a few tools in this session that have worked for me. And then I want to whip through these relatively quickly. And then I want to jump into a whole bunch of questions that you have, because that's where I find we get into the real heart and meat of things. So I'll introduce you to a few tools. The first thing I do when I started a new company or started a new role or start assessing a new product area, a few things. What's killing us? So this is a focus on the success of the business. Where are we struggling to drive business value? Are we struggling to acquire customers? Are we struggling to retain them? Are we struggling to engage them? Where are we currently struggling? This basically can help you point to what are the gaps with the current offering that we need to shore up before we really start to look at any additional expansion. And then the next three are about additional expansion. So who are we great for now? Why are we great for them? And what problems do we truly solve versus what's a superficial feature? So actually the top row there is about taking stock of where we are now and shoring up our gaps. So we need a strong foundation on our product in terms of a customer base that has a strong willingness to pay, that really understands the value that our product delivers, values that enough to pay either with their actual dollars or their information in some applications, and and actually use the product and gain value from it. From there, we can start to look at what are other problems we could solve for our current customer base. Why are we uniquely positioned to solve them? Why or why not? A few other questions I like to ask here are, what's the willingness to pay to solve those other problems? Will it be worth any more dollars to us? Or would it be a protection against competitor who can do these things that we can't, or solve these problems that we can't? Is there any additional share of wallet that we can get from our current customer base for solving this? Is this an offensive move in the market against competitors who are established, et cetera? And then who else could we be great for? So we have a product that's already great for a segment of the customer base or of a market. If we sort of expanded our scope to look at attacking another market or another segment, how ready would our product be to do that? What changes would we need to make? What additional problems would we need to solve for them? How close are we? What distinctive competencies do we have in our product in terms of technical capabilities that we could leverage to be a niche player in a new market? All of these questions, and you may not have one or any group of people in the organization who have answers to these questions. That's great. That gives you the opening to go and find the answers to these questions through discovery, there's lots of articles and stuff published online about how to do this type of stuff, but and then we can get into it if you want in the questions, but discovering your market, really discovering the needs of your customer base. These questions, if you ask them of yourself, ask them if you know these things, and if you don't know these things, go find the answers to them. This establishes your foundation to move up into that strategic arena. If you can be an expert for your product on all of these questions, you're going to be a voice in the strategic conversation, and a strong voice in the strategic conversation. So I really recommend sort of asking yourself, do I know the answers to these questions? And then asking yourself again, do I really know the answers to these questions? And if you don't, find them. Pick one. Who are you going to be great for next? Do we need to shore up our current product because it's failing? Is our current product stable? Yes. Do we want to move into a new market, or do we want to solve a new problem for our existing market? Which one? You can pick only one. And that's the thought exercise that I want you to go through at this point. And really sort of build out, if we were to only pursue one of these, how would we do it? Third technique, map features to problems. So I'll often walk into an organization or a situation, and we've got a whole bunch of features we want to build. That's our roadmap. Okay, so step one, reverse engineer my current roadmap. Why did the people who made my current roadmap believe that these are the features we should build? Let's map it back to the answers to those questions I had on the take stock slide, and shed light on any focus issues. So what I'll often find is we have features all over the map. There's some features that are sort of scattershot trying to go into a new market. We have some scattershot features to shore up our current offering, and we have some other features in there to solve a new problem for our current market. Okay, so we've split our focus three ways. What could we accomplish if we narrowed our focus and only focused on one of those things? How much more quickly could we shore up our current offering? Much more quickly could we address these new problems for our current segment, and destroy whichever competitor happens to be in that spot? Or is expanding into this new market really the number one priority that we need to do for the company? Are we solid otherwise? And from there, you can start to actually trim your roadmap and take features off of it, which is really ultimately what we're trying to do if we're trying to achieve focus. So I really urge you to prioritize problems, not solutions. And I'll talk to you in the next few slides about how to do that. One, communicate at the right level. So now we're getting a little bit into road mapping, but the things that are up next on the roadmap, I would call firm. I stole this from somebody that I know in the Toronto product community who's quite good at this stuff. So firm, fluid, and fuzzy. Firm up next on the roadmap. New or existing problems, solutions are already defined, and we're iterating on those solutions. So we're trying to really nail it with a use case. And we've got a really strong idea about how we're going to tackle a problem. And so that stuff is up next on the roadmap. At the next level of granularity, we have fluid. So it's on the horizon. We've put some definition around the problems to solve at this stage. We have a few options for solutions, and we're validating which solution we think we want to be as our first iteration at solving that problem. And then fuzzy, farther out. There's some new problems to solve. We're still really getting a grasp on what those problems are. No solutions defined. We're validating the market opportunities for the fuzzy stage. So think about your product features in each of these stages and communicate at the right level. Things that are firm, yes, we can write them down on the roadmap as we are going to build X. Things that are more fluid, I think we should still phrase those in the problem we aim to solve. And then fuzzy, I would even say the opportunity we aim to attack. And so think about that framing when you're writing things on your roadmap, and that will help, because if I have something that's far out and I've defined it as we're going to build exactly this, that gives me zero flexibility as the dates come closer into how I solve that problem. Salespeople, other areas of the business start making commitments around a specific feature that's going to be in the product. Whether we've told them that they're allowed to or not, it doesn't really matter. Commitments get made, things get written into contracts. No matter how much you try and avoid it, these things happen, right? Even if it's not an external commitment, there's expectations that are set internally that are then violated later when we end up doing the right thing. And I know most product managers I talk to would prefer to be congratulated when they do the right thing rather than take a beating because they changed the roadmap. So communicate at the right level at the right time is an incredibly important takeaway for this session. Measure impact. When we talk about the feature that we have built, success is not delivering the feature, so success is solving the problem. And so anytime I like to report back on the status of a feature. Let's say the feature is in progress, being worked on. I like to report the estimated time remaining that we have, as well as how far we've gone in solving the problem we intended to solve at this point. And put those two things together, because then the folks who it changes the conversation from when's the feature going to be done to when is it going to have the intended impact or result. And ultimately then your negotiation for more resources and more time starts off on a much better footing, if you do in fact need more resources and more time, because you're saying, well, we've invested this much and we've got this far, and here's what I think, where I think we should invest next to improve our impact here of this feature. And that's a lot easier conversation to have than, yeah, it's taking longer to get it right, to build it. Let's talk about the roadmap for a bit. The jobs to be done. I know some of us love the jobs to be done framework. I thought I'd throw it in here because it's cute. Assure stakeholders that the development team is working on the most important things and track commitments that have been made. These are the true 2 jobs to be done of the roadmap. And so when you think about constructing your roadmap, we need to make sure that it does these two things. So on the second one, start by making as few commitments as we possibly can, unless it's absolutely necessary. And on the first one, that's where a well-crafted product strategy will come in. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Ignore sort of the exact layout of this, but think about it, the concept of this. Customer segment roadmap. So when we talked about solving problems for people, right? The people we're going to solve it for are the rows, so that are defined by the sets of rows, right? So people in this geography, in this vertical, with these use cases. For your business or your product, the rows can be different, but I'm trying to give an example here of, let's say in 2020, our goal is to sell our same product, same solution into a new segment, which is a geographic segment of EMEA. And then in 2021, we're going to sell our same product into SMB retail for the point of sale use case. Right? So that's it's a very specifically defined opportunity for us. And we think for whatever reason that our product will apply for SMB retail point of sale. And it's very clearly saying we're going to tackle e-commerce later. Right? And so when you think about at this level, this is where you're aligning your product strategy. So I would urge you, in addition to producing the feature level roadmap, to produce the strategy level roadmap. And this is a really good framework to think about your strategy roadmap in, because as soon as you do this, any feature that has to do with e-com, for example, is not happening in this year or next year, very obviously. And if you've aligned at this level, you can very easily punt those features out and establish a focus for your team or for your roadmap. And then let's say now I have my thematic roadmap that says, okay, the EMEA expansion, and then a reliable and scalable point of sale solution, and then some e-commerce foundations. These are the things that we want to be sort of focusing on this year, because our EMEA expansion is imminent. We're doing that this year. Our point of sale, we're doing that next year, but we want to do some things now, or do some things next on the roadmap to start to prep for that. And then for e-com, we want to put those later. Those are all punted out later. So it helps you sort of align at both levels. The customer segment roadmap is sort of your strategic roadmap, and then you can establish your strategic themes from there and align your features to it. I love the now, next, later here. If you can get away with it, some organizations will mandate a Gantt chart style roadmap with timelines on it. I would really, especially if you're in software and SaaS software, for example, really now, next, later is the best, because now you can just say, we're working on this now, we're iterating on it until it's great, and then after that, we're going to do the next stuff, and don't even think about the later for now. Like, it's a very clear, easy way to communicate to the business if you can get away with it. Some management layers won't like it too much, but one of the techniques I've used here is present the roadmap in the way that they're looking for it to be presented, but then also present this, and always do it. Even if they ask you to just skip past the slide, oh yeah, no, we've already seen this. Do it every time. They'll start to get used to it. They'll start to see the value in it, in my experience anyway, and then they might actually just start asking for this one. And you can kind of slowly introduce it into that way. Naming features on your roadmap. Again, this is about changing the conversation from solutions to build to problems to solve. So in any way, if there's any opportunity ever on your roadmap to not frame a feature as a solution you're going to build, do it. So for example, I'm going to state my feature name as, we're going to nail this use case. So, or move this metric, or achieve this outcome, or enable this opportunity. These feature names are not traditional feature names. But as roadmap items, they work really, really well because basically says the definition of done of this thing that's on the roadmap is that we've moved this metric to this target, or we've achieved this outcome, or we've enabled this new opportunity. And then it forces you as the product manager to sort of baseline and report back on how well you've enabled the new opportunity or achieved the outcome. But it pivots the conversation in a way that's really useful for you as the strategic voice in the conversation. Road mapping do's and don'ts. So always tailor your roadmaps to your audience. You will have different versions of the roadmap. There's no one roadmap. At the company I work for right now, we have 3 levels of roadmap. We have the strategic roadmap, we have the sort of the thematic roadmap, and then we have basically like a release by release tactical one. And they all have very different time horizons. They have different audiences. They have different purposes. So tailor your roadmaps to your audience. Frame as problems. That was the purpose of the last slide. Relate everything back to the strategy. So find a way. Presenting a roadmap is not just presenting the picture of the features on a timeline. It's presenting the strategy first, creating that context, and then saying, because this is our strategy, this is our roadmap. Always call out what's not on the roadmap. There's somebody in the room who is holding on to a pet feature that they really want done, that they may or may not be thinking about as you're going through your presentation. And if you don't call it out, either they weren't thinking about it during your presentation, they're going to come back to you later going, hey, your roadmap needs to include this, or they're going to call you out in the meeting and say this needs to be on the roadmap, and you'll be able to defend why not. So always call out proactively what's not on the roadmap. I usually like to do this right after I present the roadmap slide. Say notable omissions, things that aren't on the roadmap are these things. And if anybody needs you to explain why on any of them, then you have your strategy to refer back to. Build in time in the roadmap to iterate and learn. So this is partly about framing as we need to solve this problem now, and we will stop when the problem is solved. That's ultimately the end game. That's how where you want to get to. So build in time to iterate and learn. Don't be optimistic on the roadmap. This is the wrong place to be optimistic about delivery. You're going to end up with commitments that you don't want. Don't make unnecessary commitments. There you go. And don't present project plans. This is not about which development teams resources are we going to rearrange so that we can get all the things done. No, this is about our focus and the 1 or 2 things that we want to get done in this time period, and about the path to get there. This is not about these people are going to have these tasks, and then they're going to write this piece of code, and then this other service is going to take that piece of code, and these people are going to make it do this. That's not a roadmap. That is useful. It's a project plan, but it's not strategic. So when we're presenting a strategic roadmap, let's avoid the nitty-gritty about how things are going to get done. A lot of material in a very short time. I really want to get into questions. So I'm hoping that all of this material sparked some thoughts, and I'm hoping that I can field a whole bunch of questions from you so we can get right deep into the heart of it.
Hi, Rob. This is Vishal Sinha. I'm a product manager. I'm running a SaaS-based tool, driving some of the features to the market. And
yep.
First of all, thanks for taking your time and explaining and going through all these frameworks. It was very valuable to us. So the problem statement, what I have in the company is that, like what you said, it's a very core example which happens and governs in every company. Like our business goal, let's say for the company for 2020 is to generate revenue by 10%. Now this business revenue can be extrapolated from the existing customers as well as we have also have planned to pitch into a new market segment where we have identified certain set of features.
Great.
Now, we will be devising a strategic roadmap, which will not be tactical in nature. And in the strategic roadmap, I want to know how to prioritize what to be done first. Should I look for performance, which will be satisfying my existing customers, or should I look for those list of features which I have to pitch in for the new market?
Depends. The answer to everything in product management, it depends.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have two objectives. You have one, okay, so you have a one goal, which is we need to increase our revenue by 10%.
Yep.
And do you have an estimate as to how much you think you can get from that current base?
Yeah, let's say they are equally and fairly distributable, and is promising from is equally promising from both the ends, both the parties. The revenue generation. Let's assume that.
Yeah. I mean, if your focus is on if you have a dual focus, if it's really on two things, and you've got.
I'll tell you why. Because if I am looking to the performance, then I'm not building on those features, and I'm losing my market opportunities, which I could have otherwise. Yeah.
Okay. How would you frame up the performance theme in terms of value to your customer?
To the existing customers, I will say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest as 8 or 9. But for the new customers whom we are targeting as a new market, performance may not be the criteria to sell our product.
Yep. I would do the thought experiment. Like, so what if we didn't improve performance this year? What if we've put everybody on to entering the new market, right? What would be the risk, right? So we want to grow our revenue by 10%. Great. So that's some percentage of net new business, but that's also like you're subtracting out your churn, right? So how much business you lose by not doing it? How much more business you're going to gain, do you think, by doing it? What's your risk profile? This year and next year, and if it's non-negotiable, you got to do it. Then go for it. I would say a dual focus isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, what I'm trying to avoid here with the prioritization versus focus conversation is there have been companies I've worked at that 200 employee companies. So a development team of what, around 50, with 15 active initiatives. Like, that's too many, right? And so it sounds like, I mean, a dual focus, performance and entering a new market, just be conscious that you're splitting time, right? And you're saying by taking, let's say, half the people and putting on performance, I'm taking those people away from entering the new market. And so do we think, in order to have more success as a business, do we think that that we could do that with half our effort, or do we think that we would do it better or faster with all of our effort, and are we willing to sacrifice it? This is the art, right? This is what we were talking about at the start. That's why it's called the art of strategic road mapping. There is no playbook. I can't give you the playbook because I don't know your business, right? So but I think it sounds like you think about the right way already.
Okay. I would not have asked this question if we would have a dedicated team looking into performance and this new set of features separately, and they could have worked parallelly.
Right.
But given that we have a common team, then I have to just divide the resources among them and just to play around and see what level we can drive these features out of the door.
What I've seen work really well, if there is a dual focus, try not to put the same people on a dual focus. So you split the people up and you give them the focus from start to end, right? So let's say we say it's a 50-50 split. Let's actually take 50% of the people and say your focus is performance, and then take the other 50% and say your focus is entering the new market. And yes, you should talk to each other, but you shouldn't pay very much mind to the other work. I would
So basically, what you're
caution.
saying is
What's that?
splitting up the teams.
Yeah, I would make two teams and have them both independently working, and even at it's tough at the product manager level, because often you say, oh well, this product manager can handle these two things at the same time. The reality is you're time slicing that product manager's attention, and that can be tricky as well. I've found as in my career as a product manager, you get a way better result if you can focus on one problem.
One problem at a time. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. I need to create a product roadmap for a new product. So please help me with a list of action items. Okay. Darshan, are you able to come off mute and chat with me about this one? Or are you just okay? Hey.
Hi, this is Darshan.
I have so many questions to follow up with you. Okay. Product roadmap for a new product. Who's the audience of the product roadmap?
The audience are the big market player who are looking for the transcription business, basically artificial intelligence, which is like collecting the raw data and labeling them and giving the solution.
Okay. What do they need to know from the product roadmap? What are you trying to convey?
I am trying to give the solution to them, like we have the different products right now, which is independent work. We want to build everything together in one platform. So they asked me to come up with the plan, stories, and how the solution should be. So that is the roadmap they are expecting.
So the play is, so you're a white label solution, and you're looking to land your first partner or customer client. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So this is a sales document. Right? So this is a bit different from what I've been chatting about, right? This is, I want to convince these people that that my white label solution will evolve in the way that they ultimately need it to solve their business problems, right?
Correct.
So here's the approach I would take. First, let's sort of dissect their market, their needs. Like, what do they need out of your white label solution? And let's prioritize those with them as part of the selling process. And then when we come back to the roadmap, we can frame everything that we're doing in terms of solving those problems for them, right? This is a bit of tailoring to your audience, right? This is not about, I work at a massive product company and we serve a huge market, and we're trying to talk about going into a new market versus, making a feature that applies to thousands and millions of customers across the base, right? This is, I'm trying to make a sale. And so treat your roadmap like that. I'm trying to basically say, at this point in time, we will unlock these capabilities, which will enable your business to do these things. That's how I would approach that one.
Okay. And during in this roadmap, will be the good if I have the UI for the product which I am thinking, and it would be that be a good idea?
It depends. Are you willing to commit to that UI at this point, right? As soon as you show something concrete, that's what your customer will expect to see at the end. And so just if you do show it, it can be powerful. It can lend some credibility to, oh, they're actually thinking about this. This is not, this is not just words. They've actually designed this and put some thought into how it's going to work. So it lends some credibility that way. The thing it takes away from you is some flexibility and introduces some expectation management later down the road if you decide to change your mind. So depending on your relationship there, perfect world, you'd say, let's iterate on this together. Here's the first thoughts that we have around how this would work, especially if they're your one and only client at this point. Keep in mind for how you'd want to evolve the solution for the market generally, but certainly with the first client, you can say, you're a partner in this, you're going to co-develop this with us, and we're gonna work through this together. That's pretty powerful. So just beware of how it's being positioned, beware of the expectations that you are setting, and manage those effectively, and it can be a powerful tool.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Or the right frequency to change or modify the product roadmap of B2B SaaS product based on customers' feedback versus new features that might get some new customers for the organization. Okay. Very common question. Very tough challenge. This relates back to the take stock questions for me. I'm going to pop the slides back there. Where is it? Okay. For me, this relates back to these questions. So what would be the right frequency to change and modify the product roadmap of a B2B SaaS product based on customers' feedback? Okay. The frequency to update the product roadmap, I would say whenever you actually change the plan, update the product roadmap. A lot of product managers don't do that. A lot of product managers, there's a cadence, there's a mandate from the business as to, we present the product roadmaps to the rest of the business at a quarterly basis or monthly basis or whatever. The best teams keep it live as much as possible. So right frequency to update the roadmap is as often as you actually change the plan. Now, I think the question more is around like, when do we change the plan based on customers' feedback versus new features that might get some new customers to the organization? The answer, as always, is it depends. Use the take stock questions to assess the situation. So are the current customers unhappy with the product? Is it no longer solving the primary use case? Are they asking you to solve an additional use case for them that you don't already solve? If they're asking you to solve an additional use case, what's the value to them in you solving that use case, right? If you're hearing it a lot, there's an indication there that there's some value. Is there a willingness to pay? Does this increase? Does this improve our position as a competitive alternative in the market? Could this help us generate some new business? This is the lens that I look at customer feedback or feature requests through. Right? So a feature request is an opportunity to solve a new problem, typically. It can also be like some enhancement or bug reports can lead to sort of the answer to the question, what's killing us, right? Maybe we're not quite there in product market fit. Maybe the problem that we intended to solve, people are having trouble solving with our product. And that's why we're getting a whole bunch of this feedback. Well, that relates to the let's shore up our initial product offering. Let's shore up what's killing us. And so there you're looking at, well, are people who are requesting this leaving? Do we have high churn in the product? Are we acquiring people based on the sales brochures and stuff, and then when they get into the product, they end up leaving 6 to 12 months later? There's the retention problem. At that point, I would say customer feedback is incredibly valuable, especially for those who are struggling to glean the business value they thought they were. But you can also look at the positioning, how we were positioning this product in the market. Are we selling it wrong? Are we promising the wrong value? Do we actually deliver a different value? So that's a pivot situation. So I hope that helps to address that conversation or that question about customer feedback versus getting new customers.
Yes, Rob, that definitely answers. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Great. That costs time as well. Thanks a lot, Rob, for taking out time and conducting this insightful session for pragmatic leaders. I'm sure everyone would have some concrete takeaways from the session. And
Happy to do it.